Have you ever been gaming or working online classes and your internet service constantly gets interrupted? First Nations Fiber is about to ensure that just won't happen again. Get ready for high speed at a new level. Click on fnfiber.com and sign up today. First Nations Fiber, empowering people through connectivity.
Gwigwe, everybody, and welcome to the Beading Table. You are welcomed here by myself, Leith Makiwa, and my fabulous co-host, Margaret Deganhyakwa Stand Up. And we're just having a selfie moment, I think, over in the corner. Anyway, we are here at the Beading Table, and we are ready to dish out all of the happenings from our, I guess, end of January to beginning of February adventures here in our lives, and all the wonderful things that are happening out in
the beading world.
The beading world. So first, I want to say a few shout outs. First out, shout out to Nicia, Jessica Hernandez, Nicia's Accessories, for launching another community beadwork challenge project, and much success for all those who are attempting to do that. So shout out to you, Jessica, for bringing forth another opportunity for the beading community to come together, and maybe hopefully inviting other people to join too, by displaying and giving the opportunity for people to bead, or some people are even sewing a design that you've made.
There's even cookies I saw.
Oh, awesome.
Or there's gonna be. And I also have to just really thank her for it. Really lit that fire back under my ass, because I was losing it. I wasn't beading. I didn't want to bead. I didn't want to do nothing. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting there I'm still in the color picking process, but I'm every day I just sit there oh my God, I gotta go and bead. I gotta go and do this. I gotta find a color.
And is there a deadline to it?
Yeah, I think end of March.
Oh, that's not too bad then.
Yeah, I think she extended it. It's not just February. I think it's till the end of March. So
cool.
It's a good one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So if you are listening and you are far away, you can check out Nicia's Accessories on Instagram to see what it is we're talking about in terms of beading challenge, and maybe if you have time to actually get a copy or a digital PDF for that.
There's two sizes to it. There's a bigger one and a smaller one. Yeah.
Also, shout out to Neil Perkins and some other Nguhua designers who are heading to Milan for the White Show, and it's part of the Milan Fashion Week. It's a concept show, and so shout out to her and all of those who are going out there, and much success. It's a big stage to be on. Shout out to Elias J. Not Afraid for being part of a selection of artists who were part of the Super Bowl merchandise memorabilia for Super Bowl 57 that was happening in Arizona. So shout out to him. He is a beadwork artist and ledger artist, and he had designed pieces for the merchandise. So shout out to you. And shout out to all the other beadworkers who are listening, and or sewers, or anybody who is listening to us. I walked in at my job and they had to shut us off. They were listening to us.
Oh, really?
In the staff room. Hey. So we're working at school, and they're also participating in Jessica Hernandez's community challenge. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to get together so they could work on, I guess, that project, but then also on other projects, and also speak Nguhuna. And when I walked in, they had to mute it. They're like, "We were just listening to you." I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I forgot to tell them that they would be on the podcast, and I would be talking about them. But shout out to all those teachers working at Gonihunuha Dindarastakwa doing the beading. And cool. So that's a lot for the first 5 minutes. I spoke really fast. Hopefully everybody heard me, and maybe I'll take it down a notch.
Oh, we got a lot to go through. So
okay, so
we may have to kick it back up.
We normally tape every month. It seemed like we taped a little bit closer together this time, right?
Yeah.
It's been less than a month since we last taped. But let me tell you, people, it has been jam-packed, because the exciting thing that we thought probably was going to be the most exciting thing we were going to be talking about maybe this month happened right after we taped. And Margaret has a store. Degariko has a store. It's called Traditions. It's here in Kahnawake. And can you believe this? We were part of a robbery. A robbery took place. Actually, I was corrected and was told it's not a robbery.
Not
because they say a robbery is supposed to be with money. But okay, so it might sound like a little less dramatic when we say it was shoplifting. But let me tell you, it was exciting.
To say the least.
To say the least. And the only really kind of funny thing and ironic thing is that there were 4 of us at the store at the time when this happened. But that just goes to show that those who are in desperate situations and need what it is that they need, and I guess in this case, it was items that they could sell for their recreational purposes, will do what it is they got to do and are sneaky and are well-versed in the arts of shoplifting. So Margaret, what happened?
We got robbed. So we were all in the store. My friends were, I'm going to call them all out. Amanda was in there. Gus was in there. Carrie Lane was in there. She had just dropped some items off. So me and her were talking. I think you, Amanda, and Gus were talking about beads.
Sherry McCumber was there. She had picked the moccasins.
Yes. So it was like a whole bunch of stuff going on. So it was pretty busy in there and people were just in and out. And this lady kind of like slithered on in and just like super quiet. I noticed her though because I was facing the door, like I was behind the cash and I was just kind of looking and so I saw her come in and so right out of the gate, I kind of like, I don't know. I just had a weird feeling about her. I just kind of was like, I don't know. But then I kind of questioned myself, like, are you kind of profiling people? Because honestly, she looked like she had very interesting extracurricular activities going on. Like, I'll say it. She looked a little bit like she was a drug user, like very, her face, all the features and stuff. So then I'm like, you know what? I'm profiling people and that's not fair. So I was like, okay, whatever, I continued my business and whatnot. Yeah, she was kind of going around and I was trying to keep an eye on her still though, because I still didn't feel right. It was just the way she was like kind of going around everything and it was like touching everything. And then, so now I'm like, okay, she picked up that necklace and was like still playing around with things. And then I saw her put it back. So I'm like, oh, all right, whatever, it's me. I'm overreacting here, whatever. So now after everything happens and whatnot, you guys are standing there and Carrie Lane had left and the lady now had left. And I just knew it. I was like, something is wrong. there was a bunch of items she had very good taste. She stole a lot of like crystal connections. A lot of their items were taken. So I had gone right away to where all those rings were. There was a whole bunch of rings sitting there. And so she had strategically removed the rings from the box and then took the cards that come with it to like it's a description of the stones that are in the rings. And she placed it over top so that hopefully it wouldn't be noticed right away, But I was already suspicious. So sure enough, I saw it and then I started screaming at you guys like, call the cops.
It was so crazy because you had said, oh, I'm going to the washroom. And we were here and the lady was in here in the store still. And I knew she was there. And she had opened the door like she was going to leave, but she didn't. She was talking to somebody.
And it's funny because in that video, because later on, we watched a video from the hardware store and with the PKs. And we saw that she had like stuck her head out. Yeah.
She spoke to somebody and I was like, looked, and then she came back in and then she said goodbye, I think, or she just slithered out. And then maybe less than a minute after she left, you came down and you beelined exactly to where she was, like you had just said. And you just said, call the cops. And we were like, what? And the crazy thing is, Amanda said, what's the number?
Yeah. Oh my God. In a frantic state, nobody could remember. And Gus came over. She's like, wait, are you sure? Like, take a breath here. Like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, no, I said, I was watching her and I was already suspicious. And I knew, I was like 100%, I know that it was her. So I ran to the door. I went to look for her. And even in my frantic state, I was like, which way did she go? Like, So I looked out and I couldn't see her.
And I followed you too. And I looked and then I came back in.
Yeah, we couldn't see anything, but they were parked there, but they were parked behind your truck. They had a really small car. So it was kind of hidden behind. Yeah. And it was, I think it was like behind, it was like backed up
like further. So she can get out quick?
Yeah. Then I saw them backing out. So then I started screaming like, get a pen, because I was trying to get their license plate. And then you came flying out of the door following them and trying to get that license plate number. Gus was screaming too. She had a book and she was like, what's the number? And but the car was like super dirty, so we couldn't see anything. Even right next to it almost, we couldn't see it. And then about like 5 minutes later, the cops kind of showed up and they had already gone. The car had left.
Yeah, because I had ran to where the gas station was. Like that's as far as I got. Like I tried to run I tried to get them at the stop sign, like literally go and stand in front of their car. But the snow was so high that I couldn't get, I was like, I can't get over this. I'm going to hurt myself. And so,
or get bumped.
Yeah. So when I ran in, Amanda was on the phone with the cops, I think. And I said, this is what it is. This is what she's wearing. And she even had red glasses and a white and black hat and just all these different things that I had noticed. And I said, she went over, she's like going towards the PK station. And then like you said, 5 minutes later, he got there, the cop.
Well, he showed up and so we had to give a description of the items. And at the time I had really only noticed the ring. Yeah. And then I started going around and I think I noticed two other things. There was like a necklace missing from a gift box that had like multiple items in it. And I believe a second ring. No, actually that second ring I didn't even notice right away. Yeah. And then there was the pair of earrings.
But you had to call the cops back after. Like that was the first set you thought like, okay, this is what I have.
I had only thought there was two because I had written out the descriptions for Wahio. He left and he was going to go and try to retrieve them because, so we skipped the steps. So in that whole process, we ran next door because the hardware store they have cameras all over the building. So we were able to see who it was and get, descriptions of them and whatever. But while we were standing there, Wahio got a radio from Waihawi saying that, asking like, is this blah, 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 like asking the car description and all that. And she's like, we have them. I have them pulled over. We found them on OCR at a cigarette store. So he said, okay, I'm going to head there. Give me a description of the items that you're missing and whatever. So I wrote that down. There were only two that I had that I had noticed. So he took that and then I started going around looking and I noticed two more things. Yeah. So I called that in and whatever. So when he
we were all excited, like, oh my God, I can't believe we were just robbed. Oh my goodness. And oh my God, they got the people and all this stuff.
Yeah, like just trying to catch our breath. And so I don't know.
Fast forward to the incident and now he comes back because we don't want to go into the description of what happened of when the tactics they use, but fast forward.
So he ended up just coming back and he had about like 7 or 8 things in his hand.
Over $500 worth of stuff.
Yeah. And I was like, what in the hell? Like, and now totally fast forward days after, it happened like a Monday. So Tuesday, it took me all day on Tuesday just to move everything.
Yeah, because things were
all over the store, and I guess it's naive of me or wishful thinking to think, well, we're almost 5 years now. Yeah. I've never had an issue, whatever. So I had moved things all over. So smaller pieces were all over the store. So now I was like, oh, hell no. Like now I have to move everything close to the cash that's more valuable or smaller that can easily be tucked into wherever. Yeah. So it took me all day Tuesday to do that. And I was kind of really pissed now. And then Wednesday, I was like, okay, let me really go through the inventory and check because now everything's moved. I have it all back in its place and whatever. And I discovered that there are still 3 items missing. There are still 2 rings and that necklace never came back. That was part of the gift box. So so that sucked. Yeah, so that was the whole deal. They were caught. To make it even more juicy, there were items that were taken also from the hardware store. So they were aware of that. Mm-hmm. So we all decided just to kind of press charges and go through that whole BS process,
Which wasn't necessarily on your radar in the beginning, right?
No.
Because you thought, well, I got all my stuff back. But then after realizing.
Yeah, and then finding out more info that unfortunately, there's a history there of this behavior and it wasn't just the lady, it was also her husband that was also.
And in the beginning, we believed it wasn't him.
Yeah, he totally threw her under the bus, like, oh, I didn't know she was stealing and all this stuff. And then he was caught red-handed as well. So, so it kind of changed the narrative. And in the beginning, I was just kind of like, I got my stuff back. All's forgiven. I don't give a shit. But then as the days went on and the few days went on, I was just like, no, this is some bullshit, like I kind of got upset about it. And
well, like I remember you talking about like a violation and just like.
Yeah, because now it's kind of like the other day I had people come through the store that I don't know. I didn't know who they were. And then I felt suspicious right away. And I'm like, I don't like feeling, I've never had to feel that way before, and I'm like, I was like, all right, calm down, So now I don't like that feeling. I don't like that little idea always constantly in the back of my head, so it's not nice. It created like a different vibe in there. I had to smudge it out and get all that out.
All that negativity.
Yeah. So that was the excitement. Great times.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of our month.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was like February 1st.
Yeah, because we taped like at the end of January last month, I think it was, or something. I don't know. We taped it. Strange time. But yeah, so speaking of negative smudging, it seems like people need some smudging.
Yeah. Everyone's kind of losing their minds the past week.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've really lost my mind, but there's just a lot happening in my life too. Like some exciting things, nothing negative, some really exciting things happening. And I just can't wait to, okay, so I'm just going to say it because I can say it because now it is out there. And I applied, like I said last month, for artist in residence, and I got an interview.
Yay!
So I'm doing that in 2 weeks. I got to do a presentation on it, and hopefully it's successful, but I just like one step. So my big thing was like, okay, let me get over the application process, which is crazy. And then now I got this like interview, and of course, my mother, she was like, oh, so what are you going to talk about? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, let me just get over this week at work, and only a week from the deadline of the interview will I actually start, because the more I think about it, the more I'm going to be like
nervous, jazzed
shit
up.
in my pants about what am I going to say, and am I going to be able to talk for 5 minutes? And it's only a 5-minute interview, but
you'll be all right.
But it's on Zoom, and I mean, I hear they're going to be great people and different things like that. But I'm just like, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
I even had to say, what is the expectation? Like, I think that's one of the things, the biggest takeaway from all the things that are happening, and I think maybe one of the big takeaways that we have all the time when working with people who maybe don't necessarily know beadwork or whatnot, or is ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
So with this instance, the woman who told me I had to interview, I was like, okay, what do I, like, what is it you want? Like, I've never had an interview like this before. Do you expect like a presentation, like a PowerPoint or whatnot? And she really was very helpful and just said like, it's not, doesn't have to, it could be anything that you want it to be, really. And so I was glad to get that. So it's like, what did I say? No question. There are no dumb questions. So yeah, even though it makes you feel like, God, I should have, like, I feel like I should know this. Like if I'm an artist or something, you should have a grasp already on the things that are in the business, but we can't know everything, and that's okay. And to have grace for yourself. And so I'm trying to have grace for myself and think about all of those. But yeah, so there's that. And I had an interview with a magazine.
Oh, yes.
And, like sometimes when you don't articulate everything it is that you want to say, you think, man, I really wish I said this. And I didn't talk about our beading podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote her email and said, hey, just to let you know, this is the beading podcast that we have, the Beading Table, and blah, 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 blah. I want to make sure I talked about it because one of the end questions of the interview was like, what do you have happening? And I talked a little bit about this artist in residence thing and other things that I hope to do. And, but this is a big thing. I mean, yes, we only tape every month, but how many people have a podcast? They tape at a studio that's not in their basement. And, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So I wanted to make sure that she added that to the publication because it's a big publication. It's an art publication. So hopefully I'm not going to talk too much about it because I like to see things actually really happen. So I don't want to like say something and be like, oh man, it didn't happen. It really didn't happen, but it's going to happen hopefully. And hopefully shout out to all those people who are, you know what? I hate saying the word shout out. We got to think of something else to say. Maybe not shout out. Holla.
No.
Holla. Holla it out. Nah. Anyway, but I just wanted to say welcome to all those new listeners too. I forgot to say in the beginning because we might have new listeners because we're getting a lot of traction on our Instagram page.
Yeah, awesome. I noticed we had a few new followers.
Yeah, and I like to follow the people back who follow us. I know Deguahawi was saying, don't be a snob. You should follow everybody back or something. I don't know. Some kind of algorithm, something, I'm sure. A method to her madness. But yeah, so anyway. Yeah, so smudging out the stank.
The bad juju.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all good and gone. And yeah, I had a exciting week, so I'm just glad to be on the other side of all the bullshit. And
you have been super ass busy with all the stuff at the store and then beading, not even beading, painting. Like you're painting like a maniac.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy lately, which is good though. I'm loving it. I'm like enjoying it. I know,
because you were in a lull right after Christmas, I remember.
Yeah, so I'm out of it. And now even my beadwork is out of it. So I'm like, yay, I'm loving life again and
that's good.
Beading and excited. So
Can I say something right now?
Yes, say it.
I also wanted to say congratulations to the Indigenous artists and other artists who participated in the Rise New York Fashion Week, specifically Garuyahawe Daibo of She Holds the Sky Designs. She had her work showcased at this event in New York City last week, and she had local community members and modeling, and then also some people from Aguasasne, and she also gave the opportunity for local bead workers to showcase their work alongside with her work. So I was lucky to be, well, she did a call out. So I just said, hey, I got some things. Do you want something? So she said, yeah. So I'm thankful for her for have that opportunity. And also hopefully those who participated in the call out for designs get some good traction. I see a lot of pictures on Instagram and stuff like that. So yeah, so everyone's
Congratulations.
getting their dues, hopefully. So.
Alrighty, so we will jump into these questions. So some of them, like I was saying, are just quick little ones. And then there was one really interesting one that we're going to try to address and talk about. I'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay, so one of the little quick questions is there a way to clean velveteen if it gets dirty while you're working on it? No. Yes.
Dirty in what sense? Like there's a stain on it? Best of luck.
Yeah, I don't know to the extent. So I guess in small ways we can address it. I know people have used like a very, very soft toothbrush.
Yeah.
And just kind of tried to buff it out a little bit with damp kind of thing.
I use either Scotch tape or masking tape or painter's tape because it's not as sticky. Don't use
duct tape
because it'll fuse onto those. I mean, even though you lightly press on it, it's super sticky and it'll like take the actual fibers out. So you want to make sure you don't use those. But
you don't have like a bald patch.
Yeah. So you would just do obviously like just pat like with the. I really like masking tape and painter's tape for that. So I would dab the area. I do use a toothbrush. I've never had a situation where I had like water on it or anything.
Me neither.
I had a situation where I had a stain. Remember that yoke I did and I had a stain on it and I had to
buff it out.
I had to actually bead on something. I had to actually bead something there because it was obvious.
Yeah,
so
you can't get it out.
I would say wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Make sure that you are not beading with coffee near you unless you're a pro.
Even that.
Like a master of like, make sure you know the distance of your arms and like so that you can have it far away and you won't bump it or anything like that. But I would just say, yeah, be very careful. I don't know what.
Yeah, if there's like major stains, you're beating over it. That's it. Like there's no real way to get it out. Like if it's especially if it's like very discolored or there's not too much you can do with it after that.
Sometimes what happens is, well, I know for myself anyway, I've had in the past where like I used a pencil or a pen because I do my design on tracing paper. And so sometimes I would paste it on the back because I glue it on the back of my piece. And then I would get my hands would be full of residue from either the pen or the pencil. So then depending on what color velvet you're working on, of course, that could then transfer onto whatever it is you're doing. So what I do is I flip the design over so that I'm never beading off of the actual markings. Yeah. Like the pen, like the fresh pen.
It everywhere.
Yeah. So I turn it over. And that's the benefit of using tracing paper because it's basically the same, like, the image on the opposite side. So that's a suggestion. But yeah, maybe if you want to send us a photo of what it is that might be dirty, we can give you more help. But I tend not to clean any of my stuff until I'm done. Because for me, it's like, well, what's the use? Because there's like little fibers of even threads sometimes, like you want to just,
It's going to be all over. Yeah. Okay. So that was one. This one, I'll answer it because I know we're not getting nothing out of you. Where do you order beads? Which is private. It's private. Now, I order my beads through Leith. No.
Yeah. And or probably, Jessica. Well, hopefully people will still continue. I'm so like lackadaisical about my bead stuff right now. To be honest, like anybody who's buying from Leith's beads at Traditions will know that the stock is very low. And it is not because I don't want to order. It's because I don't have the time right now to order and it's not a priority.
Yeah.
And
Plus to process it.
And to process all of it and that kind of stuff. And I keep saying I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I am like, I have a list of like all the colors people want and I've written it down and I'm going to do it. It's just that, that's not my priority, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, if you're looking for beads, you can go to Jessica's to get those if you want to. But
I think everyone's a little low and dry.
I think everyone's low and dry. So so beads are coming. I'm going to order them this afternoon. Where I get them, I'm not telling. That's plain simple. Because a person does not tell where they get their beads from, because that's where, one, they don't want you to go buy beads there. Like
the source.
The source.
Alrighty, so here are the other few little questions, and then there's a few bigger ones that have a little bit more meat to them. Okay, who or what do you listen to while you're working on a piece? Do you need quiet? Do you need a quiet setting?
Oh my God, no. I am not a quiet beater at all. If I'm sitting with my own thoughts, I am losing myself while I'm beating. No, I want to have something listening. Right now I'm listening to the Julia Hart book called Brazen. I've been listening to audiobooks. I also was listening to David Grohl from the Foo Fighters Nirvana. I listened to his book. So I've been doing like audiobooks and I've been watching Grey's Anatomy again.
Oh my God, again.
Again. So I'm on season 2, episode 13, but I'm listening to these books right now. But no, I am not a silent beater. I would rather like sit in a room full of people than beat in silence.
And I'm the opposite. Not that I prefer it, but I can and I will. At home, I'll shut everything off and just sit there and bead.
How am dunya? That means boring and good like that.
I like that peace and quiet because it's not.
But that's your thing, right?
You don't get it that often, yeah. So yeah, it doesn't bother me. I don't mind the peace and quiet, but I would rather like have some going like Netflix or a show or something going. Sometimes I'll do music, but I was just talking about this with somebody where I find listening to music sometimes, well, my playlist is garbage right now, but it's like, and I don't put anything new on or not in it. So it's just random stuff. And some of it like, it comes on and you're conducive. Like, wow, it just reminds you of something like 20 years ago. And I'm like, oh, what is this? And I have to change it. And then it breaks my...
Your vibe?
Yeah, it puts me in a funk. So yeah, no. So I'm not really into music unless I'm like really actively selecting. But then I end up just playing on my phone. So then I'm more of a Netflix or watching shows kind of thing. And kind of annoyed though, because I don't have a show right now. And I thought of doing Grey's again. I'm like, I just can't commit to it. I just finished it.
Okay.
Like, well, yeah, like last year, I just rewatched it again. So I was like, no, we need something else. So
I think maybe 15 years ago, I was more into music. Like music was, but then like 15 years ago, when you think about all of the technical advancements in terms of entertainment, online watching and different things, like before it was like I would have to watch like DVDs.
Yeah.
So I relied a lot on music before, whereas now I don't rely on it so much for the bead part of it. Other things, but not for necessarily. But when sometimes when those really good songs come on, when you're listening and you're beading and then you just start like, from like maybe in my case 30 years ago.
Yeah. See, like in painting, I can do it. I don't mind. I think there's a different expression coming out when I paint. So I can do it with painting and doing music, but not beading. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Yes. Okay. So the other question is, this one. Okay. So this one is interesting.
Okay.
Do you bead while you're on your moon time? Yes. Or do you take a step back? So when I read that, I thought it was very interesting. And I do believe we spoke about this briefly before, but I want to just give a quick little background because not everybody is Haudenosaunee that listens to our podcast. Yeah. So in our culture, I don't know if it's the same in different cultures.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But if it is, let us know.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear. For us, a lot of our ceremonies or a lot of the things that we do, it's, we kind of take a step back from things when we are on our moon time, when we are on our menstrual cycles. We believe that at that point, our women it's a very strong sacred time. So it overpowers like our medicines and different things like that, especially like ceremonies and tobacco burnings and things like that. So we take a step back during those times. We don't partake. So when it comes to beading though,
Because this was referring to beading as medicine. Beading
Yes.
is as a medicine.
As a medicine, yeah. So I don't. I bead all. I always bead. So, but if I'm like being a,
if you're being rotten, if you feel rotten.
if I feel rotten, yeah, I'm not going to bead. Like, I don't want to bead if I feel rotten sometimes. Or sometimes, you know what? I feel rotten because somebody's pissing me off and I need to seclude myself and I need to bead and get out of the funk. So it depends.
Yeah.
I tend to not, if I'm beading and I'm rotten, it's not usually on something that is geared for somebody though, because I don't want to put all that shittiness into it. So I just do random stuff and sometimes it's the best project. All that anger and passion and whatever comes out in it. So for me, I bead during that time. So
I don't follow that in terms of like, I'm not, I bead whenever I want to kind of thing. And
I bead when I want.
I say I bead when I want to. Maybe, anyway, whatever. No, I bead whenever I want to, and I don't prescribe to that. I don't know. I'm going to say something, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't say it. I don't prescribe to beading as medicine. Like, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as that. I can see how people would, and awesome and excellent. And I'm sure I have beaded in a way that people would describe as it being medicine. But for me personally, I am not comfortable saying that. Like, even just saying it now just kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. And it makes me feel really awkward when people talk about it that way. And I don't know why. It's my own thing. Like, I am all for one with all kinds of medicines, like traditional medicines and doing different things. But just with that itself, I just feel really uncomfortable. Even now, I'm like, I feel like my throat is dry. And so
I think it's people's personal medicines. It's not like ceremonial. Like, I get it. And
and this is why I say, like, I can understand people saying that because it makes total sense because I feel like I'm a sensible person. And when you say like, oh, if I have a hard time, I might use my art that I love to get myself out of the funk or whatnot and different things like that.
Help you process it.
And that totally is like what people would describe as something that would be like medicine, I guess. Even saying that makes me feels like weird, but I don't know. It just like
it's a healing. Some people use it through their healing process.
Yes.
That's what it is. Yeah. It's not like, I don't know. It's not a holy trinity. Like it's an art form. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah. But for me, but I'm not dogging anybody who says that. Like, don't come running for me in like the Instagram DMs or nothing. Cause I'm not trying to be that way. Because I'm not like that way. Like, don't cancel me for that. It's just that for myself.
You don't work that way. That's fine.
I just don't work that way. But but I appreciate those who do. And whatever. Okay, maybe I changed the subject, but I just thought, man, I can't pretend. Like, it's just because I can't pretend to say like, I feel comfortable with that. Yeah. And when people bring it up, it really, like, even when I wrote it down and I read the question just now, because I read it just now and I wrote it in my book, I thought, I don't know. So but I don't want to offend anybody, but that's just for me. So we're just on different playing fields. Yeah. But equal. Okay.
All right. So next one. Okay. So this was that big one.
Okay. Wait, let's go. I have a few from last time we had. Actually, it was from when we did our last taping, but we
didn't get to everything.
Yeah. So it says, how do you keep your threads from not showing while making puckers?
Oh yeah. You pull it tight.
Yeah. You pull really tight and...
Sometimes, well, I don't know. Yeah, you have to pull real tight, but I even find like I don't do a blanket stitch for it because I don't know why, but I think it's because of the way when you're untucking it.
Where's your blanket stitch though?
For me, when I do up the sew up part, not the puckers, but the side stitch. That part.
You do a blanket stitch?
No, I don't.
I just do straight stitch.
Yeah, that's what I do too. But I said, you know what? Let me try it. I'm going to see whatever. And I think I did it years ago too. But because when you flip it, if you're flipping your moccasin, then the seam kind of pops a bit. And then, you see them. So it looks dirty. I don't know. I don't like it. So
I do blanket stitch on the back, like where the heel is. That's where I do blanket stitch.
Yeah. So I don't at all because I find for whatever reason either.
Did you put a welt there or no?
No, I don't put a welt.
Okay, that's why.
So the welt will hide it. But even with the side stitch, when I did it, it showed anyways. So I think it's like how tight it has to be super tight, but sometimes when you flip it, it's going to show. So maybe use a different stitch. I don't know what stitch they're using. I don't know.
Yeah, like that was just a question. I don't know. Like, again, if you have a question more technical, then your best bet is probably to send us a photo too, so that we can really just like talk about what it is that we actually see.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then one other question was, how do you bead with a newborn?
When they sleep.
I used to bead with them on for my last one, I was really really beading. My first 3, I had no time. That wasn't a priority. But for my last one, it was. And I would just strap them on in one of those carriers in the front. And I would just sit there and bead and be very careful not to stab nobody. Or I would just like sometimes like they would be nursing and I have them on a pillow and I would just reach over and just bead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what your priority is, right?
Yeah, and it depends on age too, because as they get bigger,
oh god,
you got to put those beads away. So sometimes it does sacrifice a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's not a sacrifice; it's your child, So you just have to take a step back sometimes, or you do it when they sleep, but then you're running on no sleep like I used to. So. Which is not the greatest for your mental health either. Yeah. So that's not I don't recommend it. But yeah, it's sometimes it just has to take a backseat. But so.
Supermarché Idia, your one-stop grocery store for your everyday needs, offering regular groceries as well as Afro-Caribbean and international food products. Looking to save money? Then Supermarché Idia is the right place for you. Located at 72 Boulevard Saint-Jean-Baptiste in Chateauguay, behind the A&W. Open 7 days a week. For more information, check out their website at idiasupermarket.com. That's IDIA supermarket.com.
So, okay. All right.
So we're coming from this one, we're coming from a place where we needed clarification as well.
Yeah. And I still don't know if I know the answer. And I'm only, so there was more in the actual message that was sent, but I'm only just reading the actual.
Paraphrasing.
Yes, I'm paraphrasing the exact question that was asked.
Okay.
So how do those of us who are white passing that have status find community when we are not welcome? And that pertains to beading and selling in a small res. So when I went back and I read the question, the lady who had wrote to us lives in a very small community. She lives on a res, but it's a very small, and they are surrounded.
Part of another small community.
Yes, but it's kind of like here, like they're surrounded by
other small communities.
Other small non-native communities.
Yes.
So for her, she was struggling with there's some things that we were missing. I guess we didn't know all the details. So it seemed like so white passing, we didn't know what that meant at first. We had to have that clarified.
And the only reference I had heard about it is when African American people who are lighter skinned were able to move around a community that was maybe predominantly a white community. And normally it would have probably been somewhere in the South where they could navigate that community as somebody who was not African American. That's what I assumed it was. And then that's the reference that I had. So what we had to do is we had to ask the woman who was talking for clarification because we didn't really know what it was. And we had to be honest, like, what is this? What is it you're talking about?
And we were both guessing. So I was like, I never heard that, like white passing. And then, so we were going back and forth trying to figure that out. But so it just really did mean that she
said she was fair skinned. She had light eyes, but she had dark hair. And she wasn't the quote unquote typical indigenous looking person. Yeah.
So I believe more in that conversation, it was she was struggling with she's been told that
she shouldn't be beading because was it white passing? Is that what it is? Or
or I don't know, because she looks white, or
I don't know. It just didn't really to me, my first gut reaction was it doesn't matter what color you are. If you're a Ungwahua who wants to bead, then bead. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest, I don't know what that's like. To be a fairer skinned person.
Hey. No.
And Margaret and I had a short discussion because I don't know what that's like. I know what it's like to be a dark skinned person and all the things that come along with that part. And some of it is good and some of it is bad because then people are looking at you because they think you're going to do something because you're dark skinned, which is a total ridiculous thing too. Like, we talk about racial profiling or profiling in general, but yeah, so I don't know what it's like to be that.
Mm-hmm.
So Margaret looks the other way like, well,
hey everybody. So if you don't know what I look like, so I've lived it my whole life, know. But the difference in this though was that I have never had flack about beading or doing my arts and looking the way I do. I don't know. That took me by surprise because my community for the most part, people know who I am. People in my generation or a little bit older, younger, I guess know who I am.
Well, okay. So I wanted to make sure, because I'm not 100% sure about the like white passing or whatnot, but this is what it says. This is just in general. I just Googled white passing. It says racial passing occurs when a person classified as a member of a racial group is accepted or perceived as a member of another group, is perceived as a member of another group. Now, I'm not sure if that means that person is electing to not tell the other people who they really are.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's what it is. Like, it seems, I don't know. But anyway, will probably be a touchy subject for some people, like, to hear this, because whether you might actually...
Well, because we have both thought, there's a variation and everyone has their own...
Yeah, people who are listening might be like, oh my God, like, are they talking about me or not? Like, things like this. Because some people will have experience with this exact thing.
Yeah.
And some people will not necessarily understand what it's like. So it's having grace for both sides.
Yeah, exactly. Like...
So let's talk about from your perspective.
Yeah. So the difference, like I was saying, growing up in a small community where, yes, I don't fit the norms of what we're supposed to look like, I guess.
And what is that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, like you were saying, you get tormented for being too brown.
Yeah.
And then I am not brown at all. So, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I have never experienced that, to say, not within my own community, because I think that was some of her struggles, is that she was getting flack from her own community.
And other Indigenous people.
Yeah. So I do have to say, yes, when I leave our community, it's different. I do have to almost, I don't feel like I have to prove anything to anybody. Growing up, it was instilled who I was. So it doesn't mean it doesn't suck when somebody's questioning they want your whole lineage and all this bullshit, which is bullshit. But I don't know. I always had that sense, like, I've taken time to know my language. Obviously not fluently, but I have some,
You have a strong base?
Yeah, I have a strong base. I have learned parts of my culture. Like, I partake in my damn shit. So in that sense, I feel secure. I know who I am. I would like to know more stuff, of course, like everyone else, but I feel secure in that. So, and I made it a damn point to know that because of the way I look.
Okay.
Because if I leave this community, I don't look ungwe. So I'm going out and I look like another non-native person.
Yeah.
I always made sure that I knew who I was, so that when I was questioned, I had my backup. I can speak my language. I can tell you where I come from. I can tell you my culture and all of that shit. So, and I've instilled that in my kids.
Yeah.
My son has platinum blonde hair and blue eyes and super fair skin. My daughter's a little bit darker, but, same thing. So they know who they are, or I want them to know who they are, so that when they come up against this someday, and they will, that they have something to fall back on. So I find, for me, I guess that having that base was most important, and knowing that. But going out and dealing with that, I don't know. I can't say like I think it was more hurtful being at home and like people criticizing the way you look. But I've never had anyone say you can't bead or you shouldn't because I don't look a certain way. But yeah, so that's kind of weird. That's a little shady and shitty.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's all I have for that.
Yeah.
It's like a really weird and touchy, weird thing. I don't know.
I think it's something that people spoke about before to like peer groups or whatnot, but it's now becoming not taboo to speak about these kind of issues that people are facing. You know what I mean? There are like the severity and the more visual things of other, I guess you could say, minority groups or whatnot, but now we have now embraced the talk of being able to talk about just things as Ungwohu and the struggles and the challenges that we've had. And we're able to put voice and vocabulary that mirrors the vocabulary that other groups have been using for maybe longer than we have, for say like 50 years, 60 years and stuff like that. And when those things were visible, and I'm talking about African Americans in the South and whatnot, or even in America period, and then now being able to say, okay, like this is, now we feel okay to talk about these kind of things. And I think it has a lot to do with all the taking our power back and speaking about things that happen at residential school and those monumental moments that we've been like, okay, we can speak about this. We don't have to be ashamed about these kind of things. We're not just going to slide underneath like society wants us to. We can put our truth we can put voice to our truth now. So,
and even more so, I find sometimes there's like this whole, or I don't know if there is, but because of the way you look, you shouldn't have a say, or you shouldn't speak your mind, because while you're speaking up for Indigenous rights or something, but look, you look white. Like that, to me, that almost falls into this, like, you shouldn't be doing Indigenous things when you look white, because it doesn't matter what the hell you look like. Like, I don't know. I think it's a whole lot of bullshit.
Yeah. I think it comes it comes right down from like hurt. Like hurt people.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people who have a lot of things that they've gone and seen, or their family members have seen and have perpetuated those ideals or norms to their family. And it's hard to break free from those things. That's why people do a lot of stuff that they don't even realize they're doing. It's because it's like indoctrinated and ingrained in their minds that this is how you should be. And slowly we're all making our ways to figure out how we should navigate ourselves in society. And it's hard because you always fall back on things that you know. And so, and where you felt safe. And if you're growing up and this is how you were raised, you feel safe in that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be safe for somebody else just because it's safe for you and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's interesting to talk about because no one's ever brought this kind of subject up to us before.
Yeah,
we've talked about non-native people's beating and what that, and that kind of thing, or people teaching them and all that kind of thing. Like we try to touch on that a little bit, but we never had this, but yeah. So
yeah, it's a different lens. I guess really just to answer the question where it said like find community when you don't feel when you're not welcome or you don't feel welcome in your own or whatever, then you really do have to make your own community in that. I don't mean Mikanak, but I mean like I mean
wait, you want to talk about that?
No.
You don't want to talk about people presenting. Would that be presenting as Native, and even though they have no lineage or heritage at all, would that be?
They just jump on the bandwagon.
But But in this case, like I don't see that as that. Like I don't see from what she's telling us, it doesn't seem like that's what it is. It's just people saying, well, one, she was talking about her prices. She wasn't confident in her prices. And then that kind of generated the conversation as like, well, how is she able to sell? Mm-hmm. And I think maybe because she was fairer, I'm assuming people took the idea that because she was fairer, she was able to sell into the community because she didn't look Native. And then the Native people got mad at her. And I'm using Native just because I don't know necessarily the term, who she is referring to. So I'm using Native. I know it's not politically correct. I'll use Ungwohu, like, well, we won't get like tied up in that. But there's still some colonizers' words running around these parts. So let's skip over that part. But yeah, so like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think she's pretending. She is Ungwohu and she's beating and just
back off.
Maybe her stuff is good, man. Maybe her stuff is really good and they're just jealous. Like, so my mother would say, well, they're just jealous. And I would hate that. Yeah, my mother used to counteract because I was brown as they're just jealous, which made me feel even worse because then it means that they thought I was better than them.
Well, I think that's on both sides because I got the same. They're just jealous. And I was like, but are they? But are they? Or
she'd be like, oh, look, okay, this is my cake. Okay, so we're going to go into a little bit more of like this kind of thing because it was a really big thing in my life. So I am a dark person. I have dark hair. I had dark eyes. So when I was younger, my mother would take me places, and this is what she would say. Oh, people were like, oh, she's so beautiful. And no, this is as a kid. Oh, da, da, da. People would be watching me. And then so what happened is that I don't know if I heard any of that rhetoric, but I heard her say, oh, as a kid, as a baby. And now this is like I'm 5, 6 years old now. She would say this, like this was, and what happened is I got so self-conscious. And this was also the time when I moved to Kahnawake and people, well, one, I was a new kid in school, but I was super ass dark. And I felt like that was something that was hindering me from really making connection. And that in my being, that's what it felt like. So when my mother would tell me these stories about that and calling attention to look, even though she wasn't saying it was bad, she said it was wonderful. It just created this thing with me. And I then proceeded to take it on, and it shaped me where I could sit in a restaurant, because I would be very aware of people watching me. And it was like, oh God, like it's because I'm brown. And so whether they were looking at me because they thought I was pretty, I don't know. Like it wasn't that. It was just like, oh my God, people are watching you. People are watching you. So I would have to like sit with my back in a booth because I didn't want anybody to watch me. My boyfriend, who at the time, who is now my husband, we would go out to eat, and I said, I can't sit here. I have to sit on that side of the table because he or she can see me eating. And so it was that kind of thing. So just parents, be mindful. Be mindful.
Don't give your kids complexes.
Don't say they're jealous. Just say, you know what? You're a good person.
Yeah.
You got good stuff, like, yeah. So, but yeah, anyway, that's one of my hangups.
Mm-hmm. And yeah.
But not anymore. I own my brownness and my gray hairs, because it's not black anymore. I own my age.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
yeah, we all have it. Everyone's got a hang up, and everyone has a side to their hang up.
Yeah. Hopefully we kind of treaded on that well, and maybe we have more questions than we do answers, but hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not something that's always brought up or talked about. And like I could be sitting with my friends and we're talking about all kinds of stuff, and I'll be like, oh yeah, like I don't know, just say something, and I'm like, internally I forget what I look like maybe sometimes. So I'm like, I feel like I look like Pocahontas all the time. So stupid. But even for me, thinking that is the way I should look.
Oh,
to be Ungwehunwe.
Really?
Yeah, because everybody my whole life has always questioned, why are you blonde then? You're native? Oh my God, why are you
sick to my stomach a little bit? That
it's annoying. You have no freaking idea. Going to trying to go over the border is the worst. I had people like really say some rotten shit to me,
Really?
Yeah, so it's not nice. It's not fun, trying to deal with that. And it just makes me more mad knowing, because it makes me more pissed because knowing, like, I know who the hell I am, so it makes me more mad and just, it's annoying. It's annoying. It's very annoying. My kids, for the longest time, they used to like get nervous going to the border because they knew it was coming. Yeah, they knew it was coming, that we were going to get harassed. Like, even Greg, who is darker hair, but has blue eyes, same thing. He gets questioned. Well, why are your eyes blue? And not in like,
that is so ridiculous.
And it's very condescending the way it's done.
Yeah.
And it's just really rotten. So yeah, it's some bullshit. So it's having grace, and especially from your own, like I think it's having grace for both sides,
Yeah.
I saw a post long ago about somebody basically calling people out for saying like, oh, well, you're lucky that you look white because you're safe in a white community where I'm brown and I'm not. So, but I was like, that's true.
Yeah,
it's
true,
not that it's not true.
Yeah.
But don't create that animosity between, because both sides have their hurts and both sides have their bullshit, So it's having grace for both sides, that both sides are going through whatever they're going through. Yeah. And that's what it is, So just fuck everyone, piss off. No.
Go smudge.
Yeah.
Go smudge yourself.
That's basically what it comes down to, So just.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that loaded question.
So yeah. So if you have any, if anybody out there who's listening has anything to talk about that, we're open to talk about things like that, and, flood our inbox to see what it is from your perspective. Because like you said, we always say is we're speaking from our own perspectives, what we know, what we've
what we feel.
What we feel, what our limited Google experience has shown on the algorithm. And maybe from this, the phone is picking up all this stuff and I'll get all this racial content. But yeah, so anyway. So that was that very interesting topic.
Mm-hmm. All right. And
So you had a question and I'm just going to, this is your hypothetical. And she goes, say it's hypothetical. Should we say it? Should I do it? What if another bead worker inboxes you and says that her client sent you pictures of your work and is asking her to replicate something you've done? What do you do?
What do you do? How do you feel? What do you think of that? So yeah, like I want to...
Is it a compliment or a slap in the face is what I wrote underneath that.
So I do want to clarify because when I wrote it, you can't tell context through text or through Facebook or whatever. I am not mad about this. I'm not upset about it. It was, but I just really want to see and hear other people's perspectives on it and whatever.
Because I'm sure it's not the first time it happened.
No, and it won't be the last. So, you know, and so I wasn't upset about this. I spoke. So I did get an inbox from another beadwork artist and I was very thankful, you know, that I got that. And she had a request from a client who she took on an order and blah, blah, blah. And the client asked if she could, well, how it went down was she took on the order and then the lady sent all my pictures to...
as reference.
Yeah, all as reference. And then asked her to replicate them. So the artist herself said, well, no, you know, that I'm not comfortable doing that. And even if I want it to be similar, like to create it to be similar, I would feel more comfortable asking that artist, you know. And so she did. She
Which
asked
is like
me,
gold stars for you.
Yeah, because
gold stars to that artist who was like, you know what, no thanks.
Yeah, because like really though, who wants, you know, like But why? And on top of it, the idea of it is that beadwork, if you're asking somebody to do their stuff, to do your stuff, they do beautiful work. You know,
why would you want them doing somebody else's stuff?
They have a style. They have their own creative mind. They don't need to take somebody else's stuff to replicate. You know, they have their own beautiful ideas. So so that's the way it went. And she inboxed and I told her, I said, for me personally, that was made for my daughter. It was her grad outfit that was, you know, want to be replicated bead for bead. And I wasn't okay with that. And I think I have the right to say, like, that was special for my daughter. I don't want somebody else wearing it, you know. But I'm not going to say like, oh, no, you can't. I was just more like, well, I said, I don't mind.
You asked me, so I'm telling you.
Yeah, you asked me, and this is really what I think. So I said, I don't mind if you do something similar. I said, I just don't want it bead for bead and like identical, but do your own spin. And I was actually like excited to see what she comes up with because I love her work as well. So they decided what they're going to be doing and whatever. And but she asked me, you know, so so it's just kind of giving that the heads up and that kind of thing. Yeah, so that's what happened. And the consensus, I guess, where people were...
They were all over the place.
Yeah, for the most part, most were not okay with replicating. Yeah. Having their work replicated or being the person replicating. Like, it was both sides. People weren't okay with that. Not... Like, I'm talking carbon copy. Yeah. Like, nobody wants to be redoing somebody else's work. Yeah. The inspiration, I think, was okay. Like, a lot of people are, that's cool, you know, that's fine, you know. Yeah, take it and run with it. Do it better, you know. Make it something your own. There were a few who were like, go for it, you know. And in all honesty, when I look at my daughter's yoke, I personally wouldn't want it replicated. But if you can do that, if you can put all the damn work in that it took, because it took long to do it, you know, more power to you, that kind of thing. I'd probably still be mad if I saw it walking around somewhere else. But that's another part of it that I was like, I've had unfortunate cases where people have wanted to replicate something and then ask me for the damn pattern. Like, to me, that's, I wasn't comfortable.
You can say no.
Yeah, I can say no if I want to. Like, that's fine. But if you want to try it,
some people get mad when you say no.
Yeah, and that's what we said last time.
Like, it's not that you're not sharing your gift.
Yeah, I just want to give my pattern.
You don't want to give your pattern. I'm not giving you my famous chili recipe. No, nobody gets mad. There's like 1,000 other recipes on Instagram or anywhere on the internet you can find. You don't have to give everybody everything.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about getting butthurt last time. Like, just, you know, sometimes you just got to deal with the word no, you know, so. But anyways, but I'm cool with people if you want to do all the work, go right ahead. Like it took me honestly to make that yoke, just the design and the shaping, because everything you have to make sure, because it was very symmetrical and all that jazz. Like that took a long time. It took me about 4 to 5 hours just to get it right. And then somebody was like, can I have it? I was like, no, I'm not cool with that. Not yet. Anyway, maybe one day I will be, but I just busted my ass for that, But if you want to do it, go right ahead, So anyways, that's my shady bullshit. But
and then after that, it got into like why people aren't sharing and all that kind of jazz. I think too.
Did it
on your thread or on other threads, like people will talk. I mean, that's always a conversation. Like, well, you should be sharing your stuff, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing that, and people being just upset, I guess, about. I don't know. I wonder if people are upset. Other people are doing well. I think sometimes people are envious. Like I've been envious before. Like you see. I don't even know if envious is the right word. It's not jealous. I know that it's not jealous, but it's just like, oh my God.
It hits insecurities.
No, it's not even insecurities. Well, yeah, it is, because then it's like, oh man, like you were able to do that. You were able to put yourself out there. So the insecurity of not being able to be vulnerable in my case. So like seeing somebody like, oh my God, you were able to like say I didn't apply. Like I could see myself if I didn't apply to this artist in residence and somebody got it. And and I would be like, I wouldn't be mad that they got it. I would be mad and down on myself for not having the strength and the power to put myself out there to be rejected. And because that's what it is, right?
So, and you're conscious of that. Yeah. So when you are conscious of that, you can bite your tongue. You can see it for what it is, and you can control your reactions and outlashing, or
even have an outlash, but then realize and then verbally say it if it's an outlashing that's public. Because I think if you have a public outlash, you should have a public reflection that, oh man, maybe this wasn't right. Yeah. It shouldn't be hidden, because if you're able to say everything you want to say that's negative, you should be able to say everything that's positive, and being able to be aware that you made a mistake or something should be also verbal in public too, right? Because the public heard your diarrhea. It should be able to hear your like, oh man, like, hello.
The mouth shits.
Yes. So that's something that I've dealt with where I'm envious of people who are taking the chance on themselves.
Yeah.
Not that they've gotten chances, because if I don't put myself out there, then what do I have to be upset about, So I've had instances like that, and I've only in the last probably 4 months maybe have really put myself out there. And in the last year, I have really realized that being vulnerable is not being weak, and that I can do things and be okay with consequences, even if they're negative, as long as I put myself in the ring and was able to take a chance on myself. And I think that's what happens a lot of times, is that a lot of people don't always feel confident to put themselves out there, and then don't necessarily feel good when they see other people doing it. And then it's an attack on that person who put themselves out there, rather than just being like, man, I really should just post more, or I should sell more, or I should be more outgoing and put myself in stores or different things like that. Like, like, I don't know. So that's what I think sometimes is what holds people back. And the same thing goes with this idea, is that the only way to improve yourself as a beadworker is to take the chances to bead and to design and to carve out your own. If you don't already have a style, is to carve out a style of your own.
And just do it.
And that's it. Yeah, somebody said, I feel yucky as a fellow artist. They would feel yucky if somebody asked them.
Oh, to do it,
Sorry, that was just, I just read a note. That has to do with the hypothetical question on how would you feel if somebody asked
to do it,
to replicate.
To replicate.
The person said that if somebody asked me, I would feel yucky to try to replicate somebody's work. So
yeah, and I think that goes for all art forms. Like most people would probably feel, it's not just beadwork, it's in general in art, in the art world or whatever. But there was something where somebody had wrote, like it stops them from posting, or it stops not posting, who like, I don't give a shit, post or don't post.
Yeah.
Like, don't allow that to stop you from beading. Because for me, I don't understand why why you would allow that to hold you back in the sense that, well, I'm not going to bead because it might look like somebody else's and somebody might call me out.
Or
who gives a shit?
Or somebody might not like it, or somebody might say something about it. Like, because 9 times out of 10, people are going to say something nice rather than say something negative.
Yeah, and
who really cares what they say?
Who gives a shit? Honestly, like
really,
I look at it like that. Like, so yeah, I don't know. Like, I've had, you know what? I just noticed something. Like, I'm gonna bring it all up, and I'm gonna give a shout out because I honestly did that and didn't even know. And I had done a pair of moccasins. Mm-hmm. It was a raffle. Anyways, I did something. Mm-hmm. The colors, I did it. It was gold and purples and all of this. And then it wasn't until way later I noticed that in my class, there was another, I'm going to call, I'll say her name, Lisa. I never use her last name. What the hell's her last? Lisa White. I'm so sorry.
I'm like, who are you talking about? Which Lisa? Okay.
Lisa was in my class years ago and she did a yoke. And it was, I don't know how many years ago. It was a while back. Now, I noticed that the vamps that I did look so much like her yoke. The colors, it's the color scheme. And I was like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. So it was never intentional. I never look at any of her stuff. I never was like, oh my God, I got to find this or whatever, you know. So it happens. It really does happen. She didn't call me out, I don't think. But if she did, you know, like, that's cool. Like I didn't copy it, but this is what happens sometimes. Like people are on the same wavelength and whatever. So I think just don't worry about it, you know, like don't be afraid to post. Don't think that only select people are allowed to post because that's bullshit. That's not how it is. And that's not how.
Toot your own horn.
Yeah.
Don't wait for somebody to do it for you because I can guarantee you 100% of the time, nobody gives a shit. Mm-hmm. You got to give a shit for yourself. You got to be looking out for yourself. Not to say that you have to, not in the sense that you should be egotistical and do all that kind of stuff and only look out for yourself. I'm not saying in that context. In the context of beadwork or art or anything, if you want to be noticed, put yourself out there, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Don't wait for somebody to come knocking at your door and soliciting you for whatever it is you do because the universe said, hey, you should go over here because they got some good work. It don't work like that, baby. Well, you got to put yourself out there. You can't wait for any of that to come knocking at your door because it's not going to happen.
No.
You have to, in this day and age, put yourself on social media. Find somebody to wear your creations.
And in all of this process, you also have to realize that when you do that, when you put yourself out there, you're also in the line of
fire
of
positive and negative.
Yeah,
100%.
So, you know, like either do it or don't do it and just whatever.
And deal with the consequence of either.
Yeah,
that's all.
And that's the way it is. So like,
and don't rain on anybody else's parade because you can't do it.
We're like going on a tangent,
but it's true. Like, you know, like.
Yeah, it bugged, like I was sitting there and thinking about that, like somebody writing like it was just one comment, but it was kind of like, I really hope that other people don't sit there and like worry about that. Like, don't allow bullshit to stop you.
To permeate your life. And it does not just pertain to beadwork. It pertains to life. Mm-hmm. Don't let somebody else's negative thoughts or thoughts, period, permeate your existence to stop you from doing what it is that you want to do.
That you enjoy.
That is like their way of holding you back. Get them out of your foxhole. Mm-hmm. Surround yourself with people who are supportive of you. Surround yourself with people who are on the same track as you, who have the same goals. And I'm talking directly from David Goggins' book because that's who I have in my foxhole, is people who have my back and who know what I've done and know where I want to go and aren't like patting me on the back, but are willing to say, you know what? I see you. Mm-hmm. That's good enough. That's all I need. I just need somebody to see me.
Yeah. And sometimes.
And see the bad part for sure. And the good parts, but definitely see me.
Yeah. Or like, just do it and don't give a shit. Like, I don't know. Like when I bead, I'm not beading because I want glitz and glory either. Yeah. I don't put shit out because I want that pat on the back
Yeah.
at all. It's nice if it comes,
Yeah.
but I don't put myself out there for that. I
Yeah.
do it because I need it for the medicine. No,
So now we're going back to that big round thing of medicine.
no, I'm just kidding.
But that's okay though. But that's the truth.
No, for me, it's an outlet. That's what it is for me. So
Yeah.
it's just to deal with bullshit. That's what it is. It's my calming. People might go run. People might do exercise, but I don't like doing that shit. I like beading. So that's
Yeah.
what I do. And this is what comes out of it. And that's what it is. Take it or leave it. So,
Okay,
you know
sit on
what?
my ass, drink coffee, and bead, and watch Netflix.
That's my life. So,
And maybe eat some chips.
yeah.
Some plain white chips.
Yeah.
No
So-
color.
So that's what it is. You know, there's our big rant and tangent. But
But I think we
don't
have to
even know
talk
how the
about
hell
it
we got
because
there.
like people skirt around that all the time, and we've skirted around that before too. That you know what, you just gotta do it. Just
and like
be
if
you.
we've ever given the impression about copying and all of that, like we've talked about this a million times.
Yeah.
And it's not about I don't give a shit about inspiration and all of those things. Like to me, the copying is carbon copying. If
Yeah.
you're carbon copying, that means bead for bead, color for color,
shape for shape,
placement,
yes.
everything. If you are ripping off somebody else's work,
and
then
passing it off as your own. I
Yes.
mean, yeah, you might bead it, but that there's more to bead work than just the bead.
yeah,
the beading part.
all of that bullshit. So if that's what you're doing, we are simply saying, give a shout out or maybe ask. You may not even have to give them a shout out, but you know what? Give the artist maybe a heads up.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, because then otherwise, yes, you put yourself out for scrutiny. That is for carbon copying. Anything beyond that, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know, like who cares? Just do what you're going to do because beads are beads. There's only so much you can do with them. There's only so many colors.
Mm-hmm.
Within Kahnawake, there's only a handful of places to
Buy
buy
beads,
them
yeah.
from. So
And the
we all got
velvets, there's a handful of velvet
Yeah.
colors and different things like that. Yeah.
So don't worry about it and don't stop just because somebody might think that it looks like theirs, you know, like whatever. And if somebody
or
feels
somebody
salty,
might want to
that's
say
fine.
something
Who gives a
about it,
shit?
you know,
Yeah.
like who cares?
Daneto. No.
So, yeah.
So that's it. That's it for our day.
Yeah, that's all I have.
That's all I got too. So there we go. Good job.
So, with that being said, Nyawa for listening to the Beading Table. We will be back next month. Flood your Iwaze's page with all your awesomeness about how you love the Beading Table, and like, let's get some traction out there. And Nyawa for listening. Have a good day, everybody.
Oh no.
Oh no.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iori and its employees.